of we're doing the most. We dominate rap in the culture that is very sexual, especially in the US. So a lot of men see us as easy targets to, to have sex with. And we have the highest rate of having children outside of marriage, wedlock. And so men see us as bed wenches, easy to have sex with, but they don't see us as valuable wives. Our culture, especially in the US, I don't know how it is in the UK. I know it's a little different, but our family structure is so broken and so destroyed that we really, the majority of Black women in the US, we've been put into a position of just being, sexual, just for a man's sexual pleasure. But if they're going to take a woman serious, that's why you see a lot of Black men when they become successful, they're not marrying us. I mean, they do. Okay, let me say this: 80% of Black men are marrying Black women, even when they're successful. But there is a huge thing where a lot of Black men are going to other races. Why? And a lot of women don't understand. They say the man is racist. No, the culture that woman may have been brought up in, her submissiveness, in our culture, we're being rebellious, dressing provocative. It's standard. It is standard. We hate ourselves a lot. We hate our own hair. We want our butts to be the fattest. We pride ourselves on things of being bosses, having the fattest booty, being able to twerk the best, but not intrinsic values that is a wife. And to speak to Maggie, like we talk about, like like colorism in our culture, because I think race is not just race, but it's colorism within our own culture, where they prefer light skin, they prefer this, that, and the other. I tell you, on God, an attitude like Maggie, a lot of men, like, regardless of anything, like, to me, there's such a peace and an aura about her that a lot of women can learn from, of every race, but particularly in the Black community. We don't, that's not standard model. Like,
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book. You know what time it is. Hey, listen, we're talking to you guys really quickly. I just came across this video. And I'm sure you're probably looking at the title thinking to yourself, wow, have we lost Kojo? No. Okay, listen, this situation is crazy. I just watched this video really, really quick. I was just doing some work behind the scenes and I watched this video and I said, no, I need to talk about this real quick, because this is the kind of stuff that I'm trying to eradicate, and let me say eradicate, challenge in the sphere of the YouTube and the general talking space when it comes to relationship. And the reason why I want to challenge this particular type of rhetoric is because how quickly it divulges away from actual solutions into what I call denigrating and rhetorics that really are about downing rather than actually improving, right? We've had so many conversations about how bad Black men or women are. And the reality is, on both sides of the spectrum, both parties who live in extremes are making money off these people. They're making money off their pain. In fact, they're no different to the white folk that were doing the very same thing to us throughout the course of our history, exploitation of our pain. And the same thing is happening right here, right? We have these conversations that are circular. And when I say circular, in the sense of they're not, they use the same rhetoric pattern. They use the same rhetoric pattern. And if you listen close enough, you'll hear the same rhetoric she uses, Kevin Samuels used. You hear the same Kevin Samuels use it, some other people in the manosphere have used. And it keeps going round and round and round and round and round. It's the same freaking rhetoric. And yet we're struggling to bring solutions to the table. Do you know why? Because you don't care about solutions. What you really care is about controlling to change the narrative rather than effective leadership within our community. The reason why Kevin Summers blew up is the same reason Just Paul was blowing up right now. It is, again, using Black women as a source. And you know what? It happens on the Black male side as well, because there's Black male content. There's people who create content for Black males too. The same thing, the same why that these channels blow up are the same thing. And if you look through the comments, you'll see that a lot of these people, my personal opinion, I don't see many educated brothers and sisters in that place. Just be honest with you, who can reason very well. Not saying that people aren't there. Listen to what I said. I said, I'm not saying people who aren't educated or emotionally intelligent aren't in those comment sections. But when you look through the comment sections, it will tell you about the people. I keep saying this. I said the same about Kevin Samuels. When you go onto Just Pearl's page, do you see people going and getting excited and saying, do you know what? I really was, I really was influenced by this conversation. I was really inspired by this conversation. Like, I want to see the other, I want to see men better. I want to see women better. You never see that, right? And I'm not expecting the comment to be exactly that, by the way. Okay, all right. But precisely that. It's like, yo, this conversation doesn't breed for the comment section to be like, for black men specifically who are in that comment section, to start saying, you know what, we actually see black women and we're trying to understand them a bit better, or you know what, we're trying to grow. No, all you see in those comment sections, in fact, let me give you a little tour of what I see in these comment sections. It's the same thing over and over again, just like we're seeing. Okay, all right. Okay, listen in. Woman next to Melanie tried her victim nonsense. I'm going to play her part. She wasn't playing a victim. She asks for more solutions, and suddenly she's a victim. But listen again. Melanie's correct here. Only Meghan Markle debate. The fact that Meghan Markle's mother was black, mother was sitting by herself with no friends. Da, da, da. Oh, you can't even see that. So let me go bigger so you can actually see it, guys. This is what we're seeing. Okay, I've heard men say, "I don't want a daughter to be with a man like me," but I've never heard a woman say, I want my son to be with a woman like me. Women hate accountability 100. The young lady counter Melanie's proving Melanie's point, no accountability. She's right 100%. My mother was like Maggie, a beautiful soul. I get it now. Maggie's very rare, apparently. Melanie spot on. The crazy thing is that men continuously tell women what they want and looking for a future mate, and they're not, and they're just like, no, what's wrong? You shouldn't think like that. Can you imagine how better America would be if a black woman like this, woman was like this? I have deep respect for Melanie. I love how she keeps it real. Very few black women can drop the raw truth. They will hear all this and get furious. How dare you say this about us? Da, 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 da. You can read that. I've been married 10 years and Melanie is right. I love the way my husband smiles and gets excited when he sees what I made for dinner or made him a crotchet item. Men that want to feel loved and taken care of. This series has been the best of the podcast I've ever listened to. Melanie's right. Women try to you'll traumatize everything instead of holding themselves accountable. Masterclass by Melanie, absolutely masterclass. Now, the reason why I'm pointing this out is because the points that Melanie's even making, okay, don't even all line up. Let me show you the very big, and this is why I said about rhetorics and patterns of conversation that I don't like. When I go into, and by the way, when it pops up on my feed, I don't watch Melanie's videos. I'll be honest with you. So I would have to go and watch it to be 100% sure. Most of the time, what I see from Melanie's feed is, again, about holding women accountable, which I think women should do. But it's holding them accountable in a way that ends up promoting that women are these degenerate animals. And I use that word specifically because that's all it ends up becoming. Like, and I say this because it ends up being about, and I'll show you something. I'll show you exactly what I mean in a second. But let me put the video clip on and then I'll get to that. Right. This whole situation is a money scam. It's a money scam. All of them in the manosphere did it. Most of them are in money scams. When I say money scam, what I mean by that is they know this content sells. They are using the pain of black men and black women to market and make money. They are no different to white folk using black folk for money. This is my personal opinion. This is my personal opinion. This is from what I've seen. I may be wrong, and I would happy for them to challenge me and let's have a discourse and conversation. We'd love to have it in the future, right? But every time I go to these spaces and see some similar things, it's the same old thing. Same old, right? Same old. Let's go back to the video and I'll tell you what I was saying. Okay. Now, the very first thing, let me just go back to the very beginning and I'll play it forward again. Listen to this again.
We're doing the most. We dominate rap in the culture that is very sexual, especially in the US. So a lot of men see us as easy targets to, to have sex with. And we have the highest rate of having children outside of marriage, wedlock. And so men see us as bed wenches, easy to have sex with, but they don't see us as valuable wives. Our culture, especially in the US, I don't know how it is in the UK. I know it's a little different, but our family structure is so broken and so destroyed that we really, the majority of black women in the US, we've been put into a position of just being, sexual, just for a man's sexual pleasure.
Sorry, I want to go to the part. Hold on.
In fact, actually, black women are high in dating because we give up sex the most. We're for the streets. We're twerking. We're doing the most. We dominate rap in the culture that is very sexual, especially in the US. So a lot of men see us as easy targets to, to have sex with, and we have the highest rate of a lot of black men when they become successful. They're not marrying us. I mean, they do. Okay, let me say this: 80% of black men are marrying black women, even when they're successful. But
Pause right there. This is precisely what I wanted to work. That's the point I wanted. Sorry, I was skipping through the other part. I wanted to get this point right. The reason why I feel this point is really important is because of what it says. Okay, specifically what it says. And I listen. I think both men and women have problematic. We all, including myself, have problematic views at points in time, right? So, I've been called out a few times, but just listening to that quote that she put, she started off by saying, "Hey, look, you know what? That the reason why successful black men are dating white women is because the way that we move." But then you started off by saying that you started off by saying black successful men are dating white women, and then had to come back in yourself. Actually, let me rephrase that. 80% of successful black men end up dating. 80% of it end up dating black women. So if it's 80%, what you're really trying to deal with is the 20%. And what happens is when you start a conversation at the 20%, it makes the 80% look null and void because the angle you came into the conversation with, right? It's how you narrated the story. And this is what they do. I told you about this fear mongering that they do. They take stats, askew them, put them in a particular direction so it fits a particular narrative. I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of black men that date white women or even other races. We're not disagreeing on that point. But when we don't harp on the fact that 80% of people are dating black, right? Those who are married, those black men who are dating black, or those white black women are dating black, when we don't harp on those points, it puts a certain narrative, like the whole landscape, people are just out here dating interracially. That's the problem I have, and it's done, and it's done in a way that is just like being in a cult-like church, right? Information gets passed from one person to the other person to the other person. It's not fact checked, and then it just gets used. That's very true, Donna D. That's very true. That's very true. Right? So again, instead of attacking the real issue, and I think Donna D, you put up something which is really powerful in this, and this is why it takes people with a brain. This is why it takes people who are willing to think critically. This is why it needs people with emotional intelligence. This is why it requires people who are willing to go that extra step, because there are nuances in this conversation that don't get put across because we ain't really trying to solve the issue. What we're trying to do is create some money bucks. And that's the reality of these conversations that I start seeing, right? You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to spin that narrative. I don't want to spin a narrative that every single time black women are this. I don't want to spin a narrative that every time black men are this. I don't want to spin that narrative. It's hurtful. It's a hurtful rhetoric that breaks apart and continues being a part of the trope that actually divides us. So instead of you guys talking about, we're here to try and help the community, how are you helping us if you keep on using tropes that would be automatically white supremacist kind of comments and then impose them onto us? I'm not saying they actually are. I'm not saying that white supremacists have actually used this. I'm saying it's similar to how white supremacists use arguments in a certain way that is to divide the black community. It's the same thing. You're using tropes, and then you use certain stats to prove your point, which aren't even spoken about in its fullness of its context. And then there's no nuances given. So then all it is straight. Now someone's going to say to me, "You're in your feelings. That's why you got." It's like, you know what I mean? You can almost tell what they're going to say. That's when I started realizing, no, some of you don't have your own minds. It's a circular motion of information that keeps going around to certain people, and people just soak it in and take it and run with it. It's cult-like. It's church-like, right? When people don't read their own Bible, right? And then suddenly a pastor says something and no one's fact-checked it, and then all of a sudden everyone's saying the same thing, and then they realize, whoa, the pastor was wrong. Now everyone's wrong because none of us fact-checked it. And don't worry, listen, I'm talking to that, but I'm saying I've done the same thing. Okay, I've said the exact same thing. I've been in church and said some lines that I knew was incorrect, but I didn't know it was incorrect. I found that it was incorrect, but because obviously I just trusted what the pastor said, I just took it on. I don't do that now because I can't trust you. I can only trust God. You understand? So I got to read it and I got to learn it. And I got to understand it. Right? Okay. All right. So this is why I'm having a problem with these type of rhetorics and conversations. Now, I want to fast forward it a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you agree with what she's saying?
Partly, but not everything.
Okay. Do you agree with what she said?
I do.
What was the partly? What's the part that you don't agree with?
I think one that I don't know all those statistics, but I'm assuming you're talking from the US. You know, when you talk about wife culture and wife mindset, Maggie's a wife in this room, but I'm thinking
But
about
she's rare. She's rare. Her attitude and what she is in the world, the U.S. has the highest numbers of children born out of wedlock, and the people who dominate that are Black women. So this is worldwide.
Let's pause this. Let's pause this. What I have an issue with is this particular line of thinking. Okay, a little bit of coonery in the chip. What I have a problem with is, who are these women having babies with? Who? Who are these women having baby with? I keep telling people, like, yo, it's frustrating to have a conversation when you don't actually be fully transparent about what we're dealing with. If there are a lot of single mothers, okay, if there are a lot of single mothers, all right, who are they having babies with? We have a community issue. It's not a Black woman issue. It's a Black community issue we have. And if we don't tackle both sides and we only tackle one side, it will not solve the full issue. We're only stopping the stem of the flow, but we haven't, it's almost like putting sellotape over a pipe. We actually need to weld the pipe. You can do the sellotape for now. You can address women only. Fine. Address women only, right? When you address women only, that's fine. It's like putting sellotape over the pipe. But what will happen is eventually the pipe's going to bite. The pipe's going to burst because it hasn't been welded back together again. It needs to be welded, not put on the sellotape. And the welding part is dealing with both sides and bringing the connection between the two and having real conversation. Of course, yes, let's have these conversations, but bringing the other side and say, hey, look, we've got problems on both sides right now. We got men out here. We're talking about, obviously, women are the ones who give access to sex, and I can agree that, right? If a woman says no, a man can't get it. We agree. But we agree. But the reality is, if you do have sex, irrespective of whether she said whether she's the party that is safeguarding this aspect, once you enter raw or don't have any protection, you are now part of the problem. Okay, you're now part of the problem, and this is what we have to deal with. We cannot just say from one side and when you put that blame on that party the entire time, acting as if you slept by yourself. If they slept by themselves, we can say the thing, and that's where the rhetoric I don't like, because it doesn't heal the community. It further exasperates it. It further creates a division between the Black women and the Black men, because all they're ever hearing is blame. And the same thing could be said on the other side. If we're only addressing men and not addressing the women, we've got a problem, because then it becomes unbalanced. And so this balance is needed on both sides of the story. Women who are pregnant are not pregnant by themselves. Okay? They're not pregnant by themselves. Right? They're not pregnant by themselves. So I'm saying let's deal with both sides. I'm not saying let's not ignore women. Don't misquote what I'm saying. I'm saying let's address both sides. This young lady here is being very intelligent and saying, hey, there's more to the conversation, right? Let's listen a bit more.
So worldwide,
And single mother
Black
rate
single mother rate is Black women.
The single mother rate is
Black
high
women
in the UK as well.
But it's
Okay.
Black women who
Yeah,
dominate
it's
that.
Black
so
women.
but we're saying that we're not raised with this wife mindset.
No,
So
we're not. We're not. And we can blame. There's a lot of reasons for it. It's not just because we're the worst or anything like that.
But
It's not what I mean.
But I think that's what you have to break down, because if we're going to then speak to Black women and say these things, you have to then come with reasonings, because there's so much. We already get that you are this, you are this, you are that. If we're then going to add to that ourselves, you have to be responsible to add a solution and a background.
But the solution.
Lovely. I love what this young lady is trying to get to, right? It's trying to get to a point where we actually have a real conversation about the things that are actually hampering the situation between men and women. We had a great conversation the other day, some months back, between men and women about accountability. And once we had a conversation, we set up a nice safe space for women to explain. Some of the women actually explained that, hey, look, the way that we understand things, we have to tell your story, because we feel like we have to justify ourselves, like to say this is what happened, blah, 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 before we get to an accountability part, right? And then the men were able to say, hey, look, we appreciate that. But you know what? In the conversation, we don't want you to tell a story. Just say you're sorry. Now, do you know how we got to that point? We got to that point because I had to narrate the conversation in a particular Venn diagram in a particular way by setting a particular arena and environment for it to feel safe for both the men and the women to come together to have a conversation that was going to be safe. But a lot of times people don't want to do that work. Rather, let's do the thing where we just blame people. But the reality is healing takes time, and it takes a conscious effort to have absolutely intentional conversations where sometimes we have to lay some ground rules about how we're going to interact with one another, right? Between men and women. We have to sometimes lay those ground rules. Like, hey, look, I hear you. And there are problematic people on both men and women's sides. And when they're being problematic, we say, hey, we don't like this, or we don't like that. This is how we handle ourselves in a culture. And you will see that in I'll do a video maybe during the course of the week. We had a 5-hour live on Friday night between men and women, and just having a conversation. And the conversation took this lovely detour, which was beautiful, because then the conversation could really have this fluency to it. And it got to a point of conversation where some people were saying some things, and it was other men checking other men saying, hey, bro, I hear that, but that's not how we see things around here. Right? So we need to be able to have conversations that's going to be safe, so people can actually come and start saying some of these things. Some of you are treating it like your dad and your daughter, or a mom and a son. You're telling people how it is, and I hear that. Listen, I think there's a place for that. But in conversation, when we're dealing with grown-ass adults, we've got to be respectful. Number one. Number two, let's not pile on. You know what I mean? Let's not pile on. I don't want to keep hearing men are trash. I don't want to keep hearing black men are trash. It is painful to keep hearing that. I don't feel like I'm trash, but it's annoying to hear that. So I don't want to do the same thing that I'm saying that I don't like to women. And then the crazy excuse that will come out is, we've been hearing about women since the 90s. Well, then if you don't like it, don't do the same. Don't copy their particular format and do the exact same thing and then complain saying, well, you've been doing it first. Well, then if you do it as well second, they can do it third, you do it fourth, they do it fifth, you do it sixth. Nothing ever changes. Someone's got to break the cycle. Someone has to. That's what's got to happen. Someone's got to break that cycle. Let's listen a bit more.
Is you have to take accountability. I don't care what your background is. We live in the most privileged society in the world. Even though the worst circumstance of a black woman today is nothing what it was 100 years ago. Especially if you want to talk about the U.S. slave.
Let's pause it right there. Stop that. I hate when people do that, when they transpose it to our lives weren't that hard as it was 100 years ago. Negro, I wasn't alive then. I'm so sorry, I wasn't alive then. My life is still hard right now. Okay, maybe I'm not getting killed by people from my color of my skin necessarily, but my life is still hard, bro. I've got other fears. It's like she sounds like an African parent that goes, you don't eat your food. There's someone in Africa who's not eating. I'm not in Africa right now. Okay, I got first world problems. Okay, and there's still problems. We sound like a broke person talking about rich people. What problems do rich people have? Rich people have problems too. Money don't solve everything. Okay, mental issues, relationship issues, mother and son, father and daughter's issues, they don't get solved by money. Okay, there are things that money cannot buy. Do you understand? Right? It answers a lot of things, but it doesn't solve everything. And so we have to understand, saying about, oh, we're not in 100 years ago where, you know, black men had real problems. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? That's why when your next point is that the older women need to talk to the younger women, it doesn't work. Because if the older women have a mindset that you're not going through tough times like we did in our younger times. Do you know how, look, when I look at this generation that's coming underneath me, they're struggling more than my generation ever will. When I went to school, if you got embarrassed in school, only your school would know. If you get embarrassed in school today, the whole world knows. Not even just your local area, your whole world. You could be on World Star before you realize it. Do you know how different that is? That level of embarrassment is so much different. Right? So we got to get away from this narrative of just being about putting people down and being heavily critical without actually setting a foundation and a place for these type of conversations. right? I'm not comparing my generation to the next generation. They are going through different things. And the people who don't understand that oftentimes are the least empathic people. And we don't need you to speak because you're not actually willing to be empathic and understanding that the next generation are going through their own struggles. My parents cannot understand everything that goes on in my struggle, and I'm not going to understand every single thing my child is going through. I can only give them resources and tips to help them through that generation. Y'all don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like the struggle that these people are going through, right? I was saying to a friend the other day, I was like, these girls nowadays, I see these young girls, they're wearing makeup before even, I said, hey, how can they be wearing makeup at this age? When we were in school, all it was a slick little bit of gel. Girls would go to school, no makeup, little bit of gel, cocoa butter on the face, cream the leg, you know what I mean? Backpack on back. Maybe they might have to wear trousers, they're allowed to wear skirts, whatever, and they go to school. Now these kids are wearing full face makeup. It's scary to me, right? But I also have to understand everything is documented online now. There's so much pressure, not just pressure from people in your environment, but people who don't even know you, who are outside in the peripheral worlds, who are looking in. There's a lot of scary things that are happening. I'm sorry. What kind of pressures I felt? I could go out and play till the lights go off. I mean, the lights come on, right? And even if the lights came on, I had to be inside. But let's say I stayed outside. There was no fear. Now, my parents might say, hey, the lights are on. We told you. Come back in time. But the fear of you going missing is not the same as this is today. If you let your child go out and play today, it's very hard for anyone to... The first thing that anybody would ask if your child went missing was, where were you? Where were you? Why did you let your child go out and play? We were allowed to go out and play free. We would go out, we'd play for hours, you know, we'd go out with friends, we'd meet up. We weren't even, before even that, we didn't even have text. We just tell you, hey, bro, meet after school, meet 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, meet at the playground, meet at this park, whatever. We're all meeting up, and we'd all meet up, right? And then we'll go our home after, whatever. Or we go for a walk after school, we eat our chips and chicken, and we'll have a little whatever. And we go, listen, the challenges I was facing, the challenges that they're facing, completely different. In the heat of my battles, they're not the heat of their battles. So we don't transpose what our ancestors were suffering with. Look, I have it hurts me to even look at any information when it concerns my ancestors and some of the struggles they went through, that they were transported from Africa to transatlantic slavery, even going back just 50, 60 years, being beaten up just because of the color of your skin. I can't compare myself to those struggles, but I have my own, and I'm not going to compare mine to theirs, and they better not compare theirs to mine. Don't look down on me because you think your life is harder than what's mine. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to miss it because I'm not built like you. I wasn't built in the same time. So if we transpose those kind of things, let's stop doing those things. I was once those kind of people because that's how I was taught.
Slavery. I don't know how it was in the UK. I mean, I do know it wasn't like it was in the US. But if one woman, black woman, made a choice that was Maggie made a choice that was better than the next black woman, then you have a standard now that you need to live up to. And I think a lot of times we wanted to say, well, it's somebody's fault, to the government, it's this, that. A lot of races, you look at the Jewish people and what they've gone through in society, it's a lot of the same atrocities. In fact, all of the Bible, all of the Israelites and the Hebrews were actual slaves. Like it was a known thing. And so what I'm saying is, if we have to take accountability. We want to keep pointing.
And this is why I say about doing analysis. Okay, doing analysis. What part of this situation, right? What part of this situation, yeah? What part of the situation, when you look at the Israelites, have you studied them to fully understand what made them the way they are today? Do we know what the nuances are? Do we know the story of the Israelites? And do we understand the story of the Jews? Because when we're talking about Israelites and Jews, we got to start having a whole other conversation. But do we know their story? Do we know the nuances? Do we know? And then have we looked at the factors as to why they are the way they are? You're comparing someone that was a slave thousands of years ago, and you want to compare them to us? And listen, let's, you know what I mean? Don't do that. See, you're gonna miss it when you're not being honest about your actual interpretation of what you're seeing. Now, what we should be doing is saying, let's look at the Jews. Let's look at the Jews and how they begin to maneuver in their space? What can we take from them to improve our community? That's what we should be talking about, right? That's how we should be looking at it. How do we improve? What things can we take from them to improve our community, to make sure that we also understand and get it too, right?
It's not point anymore of what the government and what it is. What do Black women need to change today? What are we promoting? Are you twerking? Are your friends twerking online? Are they showing their booty? Are they dressing for the streets? Are they thinking about serving a man? Most Black women today, it is sacrilegious. It is almost insulting them to say serve a man a plate. It is like discombobulate them. It's almost they get aggressive and mad and call you a pick me for giving a man a plate, taking his plate. You want some more to drink? You want some more to eat? It's a pleasure. Megan and I were having a conversation.
Yo, this must be an American thing. I'll be honest with you. This conversation about women don't serve plates and stuff like that is definitely an American thing. Because I'll be honest with you, that doesn't translate to here. And maybe that's my experience. Again, maybe this is my experience because I don't remember this conversation about serving plate. Now, don't get twisted. Our UK Black have our own issues. We have the same debate over and over again. So don't get it twisted. But that necessarily isn't our issue here. So again, listen, and again, what are the conversations around this aspect again? What are the aspects of this conversation again that are nuanced in this as well? And when I say nuanced, as in what I should really say is, what are the reasons? If we're saying that there's some women who don't want to do that, here's my thing. Here's my thing. Wouldn't it be easier? And this is why I get so frustrated with this stuff. Wouldn't it be easier? And to be honest, Sandria, listen, in Atlanta, someone made me a plate. I was never gonna ask, but even when I came to Atlanta, someone was like, "No, coach, let me get your plate." When we did our show, I was like, "Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that." Meanwhile, I went and got one of my boys' plates. I wasn't asking one of women because serving is serving, irrespective, right? If you serve people, people will end up serving you. Do you know what I'm saying, right? So that's another thing. But anyway, so my thing here as well is my thing on this aspect is again around the conversation here as isn't it easier to talk to the men if this is such a big problem, which let's say it is, isn't it easier to say, men, this is not the kind of women we should be choosing. Leave the women alone. I'm not saying they don't say that, but what I'm saying is when the extra added juice is added to the conversation, there's no need. Just men, this is not the type of woman we should be moving to. Let's move to the ones that that know how to serve, that know how to do this, know how to do this. Let's deal with them. Leave those ones alone. Why are you getting angry at the ones that you don't even want? It makes no sense. You see when you want to get angry at a group that doesn't want to do whatever you want to do, then you end up focusing on the wrong thing. Then it looks like control rather than just focusing on, hey, look, can I be honest with you? If those who get it, get it. I want you to focus on the women that know how to serve. And this is how you go and serve. This is how you serve. This is how you serve. This is how you do this, right? This is how we want to see our marriages look like, right? So you make sure you do X, Y, and Z. And then the women that are that are in agreement with that, take them women, right? Take them. It's easier to talk to the men who are making a choice to choose than it is to try and change those women. Those women that are not doing that, they will change when they see a consistency on the other side too. But again, even if I do that, it can only focus on one side. We got to focus on both. What are both parties not giving each other so we can actually move forward, right? Okay.
Conversation like most Black women don't know the joy, and I'm not blaming. Get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying this from a point of view that a lot of Black women don't know the other side of this.
Now let me pause here. Now, ladies, this one I'm gonna get on. This one I'm gonna get on you, ladies. Now you see how she's saying most Black women. What's your first thought when she says most Black women? Automatically, she's talking to the majority, right? That's when I said to you, ladies, about the fact when we said that a man should love a woman more. Why I said that language is important, because as soon as you hear that she says that most Black women, she might say, I don't mean most. But you're going to say, and rightly so, logically, how can most not mean the majority you're talking about? This is why I said words are very important, and why I said that when you say a man should love a woman more, then it means that someone has to love less. It's simple English. So now she's giving us an example of why I said that words are very important. If she starts saying that, the most Black women, I know you disagree, because I disagree, I don't think it's most black women. The black women I'm meeting are not like this. You know, I don't do this. I don't do this. You get what I'm saying? You know, so so it's language. Language is very, very important as well. Language is very, very important as well. Okay.
This conversation, we're talking about, it is a joy to see a man light up, like, what's for dinner, like, excited about bringing the plate, and he's so satisfied. You think you have to be sexual to make a man so happy and want you? I'm gonna tell you what, we come in and I'm serving your man, I'm taking him. Like, he's gone, he's out of your life. Why? Because I'm coming in with wife features. I don't have to dress a certain way, I don't have to do certain, I don't have to twerk. We have been sexualized. And what you have to understand, the way we are behaving today in our mindsets, we want to blame the government, but you have to understand the mindsets we have today, the independent, sexualized ways that we are. You got to be mad that that's how you have to be, what our culture has become, because it has been put upon us.
Okay, so for me, my perception, I do agree with a lot of what you're saying, but
And I agree with a lot of what she's saying in this particular aspect, right? I agree with this part, that part as well.
for me, it comes from a place of, let's talk about self-worth. And let's talk about how black girls and black women can increase our self-worth. And therefore, you're coming from a place of help. Because if you're talking about other cultures, the Jewish culture, any other cultures, they are a community, and they don't. I feel like it's only our culture that constantly talks bad about each other so
Yes,
publicly.
it's true. It's true.
So publicly.
It's true.
So if we're going to have this conversation, you come from a place of how can we help each other and build each other up. Maggie kindly then spoke to this lady and said, can I just say, out of respect, next time, think like this. Next time, put the right things in order. And I think that was the most beneficial thing that she got from this conversation, rather than all the questions of how did this happen? How did this happen? And being accusatory. Come from a place that Maggie was saying, how do we help each other with building up our self-worth and kindness, and stop with the constant, well, we're this, because we are talking bad about ourselves.
But this is
a point that I spoke about as well on another video, which I said, when every conversation becomes about a critique rather than a solution, then you are going to create an atmosphere that puts down people rather than building them up. If every video is about how bad black women are or how bad black men are, guess what's going to happen? People are going to think how bad the other person is. I said this in another video and you guys were on that. So whenever I see these particular things and I click on the video and the video is the exact same thing as always, that black men are this or black women are that, it becomes boring. You know what I mean? It becomes boring. Okay, so and not just becomes boring. In fact, boring is a nice word. Boring is a luxury that we can't even think. It just becomes negative, and when negativity is the predominant energy in that room, people pick up that energy and leave with that energy. I don't ever rephrase that. I rarely, and maybe I need to open my eyes a bit more. I rarely see people in the comment section watch one of Just Pearl's, MTR, watch O'Shea Jackson, whatever. I rarely watch their videos and see the comment section, and there's a few of them, more of them, and this is just my observation, that wants to have a good thought towards the other party of the opposite sex. Because the content is consistently always negative about one or the other. It's tiring. I go to Cynthia G, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You got black women in that section talking about how black men are trash, black men are this, black men are that. That's why I'm gonna get my white king. That's why white men treat white men. I go to Cynthia G's place and it's even worse. I shouldn't say even worse. It's just as bad. Right? I go to that session. It is just Cynthia G's place is horrific, just like the men's side. Oh my days. Whoo, baby, ain't no better. Ain't no better. My God. Okay. Just saying. So, and I'm sure there are other podcasters who are out there too who, do the same thing as these lot, but it's just annoying. after a while, because your negativity promotes more negativity. It's like it's not encouraging the conversation between the two genders. It's like we want to have conversation between men and women. When we did the whole live about men should love women more, we had some great conversations. And the reason why is because we needed to learn from each other. We need to learn from each other. There's things that we're going to say, that you're going to say, that I'm not going to like, you're not going to like, something that I'm going to say. The men and the women need to hear each other in a safe space. You know what I mean?
The thing, Black women want this soft tone, but we don't give what we want to receive. So we were
But Maggie
talking
did.
about.
Pause. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly what I'm talking about, breaking the cycle. Do you want to break the cycle? And this is going for men and women. Do you want to break the cycle, or do you want to continue the cycle? If you want to continue the cycle, then do exactly what she just said. Okay? Then you know what? Then continue the way you're going. But to break the cycle requires a different type of behavior. Listen to what Melly King just said. Black women want this soft tone, but they don't give out. Stop. I know it's easy to go into that space. I know. I was one of them. 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 You guys know, you get to see me every time I'm alive, so you know, right? Until I said, no, I have to break the cycle. I have to break the cycle. I have to learn how to lead first with love, create the environment that I want to see, and then establish rules that I will operate by so that you can operate by it as well. This is how it should look like. Let me say it again for you. And we're going to talk about this later on tonight as well. We've got a men's panel, right? As a man, how I believe we should lead our communities is, first and foremost, I lead with love. And then I set a precedence for how I want to operate in that arena that I set. So when you operate with me, I don't get disrespectful just because you disrespectful so that I can prove a point or I can win. No. I have to, I have to be able to change that around. Say, no, we don't lead in that way. We don't lead in that way. Right? We don't lead in that way. That's not how we lead. Right? So in that situation, I've got to first hold myself accountable. Right? I went onto the manosphere side, and I was having a conversation with a couple of the guys and stuff. And in that space, sometimes anybody just opens their mic and just starts talking, and the conversation gets louder and louder and louder and louder. Before you know it, no one can hear anybody else. Sometimes I've got a point that I'm waiting to drop, and I have to wait 4 or 5 turns. I don't jump in. I don't get loud and leery. I don't cuss people. I mean, once or twice I lost I wouldn't say my cool. I said something a bit too funky. I remember I said, don't worry about it, I'm going to drop the plane on your head, whatever, right? That was too funky of me. I'll admit that. But there's a way that we have to handle ourselves so that when you promote that and you live by that, other people have to live with that in that space. You know, when I told the guys we're going to have a men's panel, I told them there's a set of rules I want to obey in how we're having these conversations. It's not a down me session. Etiquette. Thank you, Elsid. I almost couldn't say the word. You know, I'll be tripping over these big words, guys. Etiquette. Okay. All right. So, I want to be able to create that space so that people can have that conversation, but I have to lead first. You know what I mean? If I'm moving mad, I can expect the people that I'm leading to not move mad too. You know what I mean? Just saying.
But Maggie did. But look at most Black women today. There's an aggression. There's a dominance. There is a thing. And I understand, because most of us have been raised very masculine because we didn't have fathers in the home. Our mothers relied on us. Our mothers didn't teach us certain things. So we want what we're not giving out to the world.
So
You
let's
want the
give it
tone of Maggie, then be Maggie. Like, no one's making us choose the things. Everyone comes from somewhere. My mother was raped at 14.
Mhm.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But no fault of her own. Her Black
Mhm.
mother kicked her out of her house.
Mhm.
White nuns took her in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no fault of her own. She made a choice. She didn't talk to her family for nearly 7 years. She decided to go to college. She was going to make something herself. She went on, joined the Air Force, went to college, got her degree. The only person in her family, while the rest of them made different choices. Then she went on. I grew up in the Pentagon because of my mother. I had an internship in the White House because of my mother. Her circumstances were what they were, but she went on to make a different choice. So every time we say these things, and then she raised me the way she did to try to get me the results. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. She's not perfect. None of us are perfect. But I think a lot of Black women, especially Kevin Samuels, who was my mentor, a lot of Black women are against him. He was one of my friends. He was my mentor. And so a lot of women.
Yeah, after that, I'm sorry, I can't trust you after that. Why don't you tell me that Kevin Samuels was your friend and your mentor as to why you do what you do? Now I have to look at your points in a particular way. But like I said, even if I didn't know Kevin Samuels was a mentor, I would know by the way she talks. Right? So this is and you guys know my videos I've done on Kevin Samuels. Some of the rhetoric weren't a fan at all. Weren't a fan at all. And I keep saying it. I think he has some true points. I did think he had some true points. Some points that he had were pretty true. I'm not gonna lie to you. There were some true points in how he discussed certain things, but there were some mad things that he discussed as well. And I went about it, right? And it was detrimental to our society and the growth of bringing people together, right? You know, and some people did benefit because they chewed the meat and spat out the bones, right? But again, that's not always the case. And again, I tell you about, look, if you looked at his comment section, you see it again. So you know, this is again part of why I said that what is your intent and what's your goal here? Because it really is about helping people. Then there's a way we have to talk to people. When leaders are leaders, they are emotionally intelligent in the way they deal with people. You know?
Women got mad at his tone because they never had a father talk to them and discipline. He sounded just like my father. So I was like home to me because I knew a man who loves you and loved Black women, and that's what it was. That's what we were so harping on tone, and we want all this kindness, but are we giving it out?
Pause right there. Let me tell you something. Listen, I've heard that Kevin Samuels tone before, and it doesn't ever end well. You cannot talk to me like that at work. I don't care who you are. And I'm a man. I'll be honest with you. You can never talk to me like that at work. This is probably why I was a bit of a tyrant at work as well, right? When I'm at work, I show respect to my bosses. I don't talk to them disrespectfully. I don't try to be rude to them. I don't try to upstage them. Now, I had my own issues. I was late to work a lot. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm late to these lives. Y'all already know. I'm consistent. I'm probably going to be late to my own late. Okay? You know, I had my my special gifts that I would work with at work. And sometimes I'll get things wrong. It is what it is, right? But I would never talk to any of my bosses in a particular way that was disrespectful. I don't like doing that, right? But if you start to come out of pocket and start talking to me like I'm a dickhead, talk to me like I'm a kid, you're going to find out, right? And I'm not saying that's even right. I just never liked it because I'm always trying to show respect to the way that you are saying something. And my thing has always been delivery. Don't talk to me like I'm a kid. I just don't want to have that situation. You know what I mean? Right? Don't do that. You feel what I'm saying? Like, don't do that. The God that I serve don't even do that. So let's chill on that. You feel what I'm saying? There's a way to respectfully address somebody, right? There's a way to respectfully address somebody. There's a way to be firm in a particular type of way. Okay. So we have to understand that when we're talking that particular way, we have to respect one another. And so the same way, I don't want to talk to women that particular way either. I don't want to talk to women that way either. I don't want to talk to women in that particular tone and way either. You get what I'm saying? Like, there should be a healthy respect in how we speak to each other. Right? So as a woman, I don't want a woman talking to me like that either. Don't talk to me like that. I don't want a woman talking to me like that either. And I don't want to talk to you like that. You got what I'm saying? So there's a way that there's rules that we're governed by, as El Cid will say again, etiquette. There's a way that we go by, you know, that we have to operate by. So she's not breaking the cycle. She's, instead of breaking the cycle, okay, instead of breaking the cycle by saying, hey, look, Black women don't don't talk in a particular tone to whatever in a particular tone. How are we going to break? By you talking back in that way does not break the cycle. It doesn't break the cycle. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you're telling me there's a better way, you can't do the same thing I'm doing and tell me it's a better way. Don't make no sense. We're not in the army, as El said. We're not in the army. It's probably why I wouldn't join the army either. You know what I mean? All that screaming and shouting, I can't deal with it.
Most Black women are extremely aggressive, extremely combative, aggressive. But when they say, well, you need to say it nicer. But are we giving out what we want to receive?
So
Maybe
let's
that's where
do
it helps,
Yeah.
though. If you give it, maybe it will be received and it might just be soaked in and given right back.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Maggie, for breaking her point. Thank you, Maggie, for breaking her point and disagreeing. If you just gave it first, maybe it might soak in and a person might give it back. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Listen, look. If I'm in a relationship, I'm gonna tell the person, listen, hey, I don't like the way you're speaking, but I'm not going to try and match you in that particular way either. Because that's not gonna help nobody. We ain't gonna learn. You know what I mean?
And I don't say this to put our women down. I know the history of what we've gone through. This is more so we can have a conversation, be real with each other so that we as a community can get better results. If we're not real with each other, especially the older women talking to younger women, I want every woman in this room to win. I have no competition with you. A lot of your mothers are in competition with you.
Oh, trust me.
Okay? They don't want you to win. They didn't raise you to be a wife because they didn't understand. They did the best with what they knew. And so it's not a point of putting you down. It's not a point of breaking you down, but saying, listen, we need to learn from Jewish culture. We need to learn some Latin
I
culture.
got a question. So are we all so we all want to be more like Meghan Markle or less like Meghan?
No, absolutely
Less.
not. She's a
Don't worry.
narcissist.
That
I
was a
was a fan.
troll
My
question.
first time coming to
Yeah.
the UK was to that wedding because I believed in what they were doing.
Yeah.
I recently did a video. I was the first Black woman publicly on YouTube to say absolutely. Once I saw the evidence of the simping of Prince Harry and the destruction of his family, boy. But listen, Ruby Bridge.
See, this you see the same. It's listen, yeah. Listen. There ain't nothing more I hate than people talking about stuff they really don't know what they're talking about. I hate when people comment on Meghan Markle and Prince Harry when they don't know Prince Harry's history. That goon has been looking to get out of that family for time. For time. When people start using Meghan Markle as an example, I know they ain't really known. I know you don't know. There's no way you're telling me you've watched Prince Harry's progression and you know what he's gone through, and you're telling me that Meghan Markle's a narcissist. That's why he's no longer friends with the family. Sometimes you just said a minute ago that some of these women, their mothers are in competition with them. So what do you think was going to happen if their mothers are in competition with their daughters? Do you think people want to be around their mothers? They're not going to want to be. I'm not even saying if it's true. I'm just saying if it is, it's not going to be true. It's not going to be a good environment to want to be around. If your mother is jealous of you and is fighting you, how long before you don't want to be in that space no more? Right? So you then using Meghan Markle as an excuse, saying that only her Black mother was there and none of the rest of the family was there, as an excuse to talk about the fact that she's a narcissist, because all the evidence that you even got, we can have evidence to prove otherwise too. Whenever I see evidence about what narcissism that she provides, we end up providing more evidence that the fact is y'all don't know the story. Y'all don't know the beginning. Like it and again, I've heard this rhetoric before, and that's why I said it's in alignment with that particular space. You know what I mean? It's in alignment with that particular space. And this is our biggest problem. When we don't have more of a nuance on how we look at things, we're gonna have an issue. Last little
Bridges,
bit.
who was the first little girl in the U.S. to go into segregation in the U.S. All the schools were segregated, black and white. She was 7 years old, went into a school for the first time, a white school. She was spit on, beat up, brutalized, and she stood what we call 10 toes. She stood taller than Meghan Markle. You do not know, you know, if you look at Martin Luther King, people who went through real racism in the world, Nelson Mandela.
Stop it. Right. See, this is exactly what I'm talking. I don't like this stuff. I don't like this stuff. I don't like what we're saying, what we call real racism. Do I have to be called a nigger for it to be real? Do you have to call me a nigger to my face for it to be real? Do I have to be beaten up because of my skin and my tone for racism to be real? Do you have to hang the people around that I love before it becomes real racism? Come on, man. This is what I'm talking about, being emotionally intelligent. This is what I'm talking about using some level of intelligence when we talk about this. How are we downplaying what racism actually looks like? Real racism. What are you talking about? Racism is racism, and how it appears, it can appear systematically, it can appear institutionally, it can appear as in physical violence, it can appear as verbal violence, it can appear in different formats. It's still racism. You're calling it little to minimalize what she's gone through, and then use a very example of this young lady who at 7 went into and got. Listen, what she experienced was absolutely appalling and disgusting. And again, but we don't compare what that's happening here to over here and say and minimalize it. Let's not do that.
Complained less than Meghan Markle. She was only black when it was convenient.
So her point is that this young girl obviously complained less. Well, let's again, where's the nuance? This is what I don't like. Where is the nuance? Where is the nuance? You know 100% that in what 60, 70, 80 years ago, if you want to call it now, what we're in 2023, probably about 70 years ago, maybe even more than that, right? You cannot compare what happens in that generation to this generation. You're talking about Meghan Markle complaining the most. How do you know Meghan Markle complains? Because it's in the newspaper. You have the ability to say something and it come out in a newspaper. We didn't have that luxury when we were young in that generation. You don't compare the two. Complain less. Who told you? Who told you? Come on, man. Like, let's stop this. I get passionate over this because this is the kind of stuff that just like, I look at it, it's just ignorance being spilled, and then it just gets taken. Because everyone's like, yeah. Like, oh my God, yeah. Without really considering the nuances of this conversation. Let's not compare what that young lady went through almost 60, 70 years ago, however long it was, and compare it to what Meghan Markle's going through. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. And let's not do that.
She never stood for us. Why were there no black girlfriends? Or her black family was, she had beef with her white family. Why was her black family not there? The only black people were there were people that she saw black people as charity, or black people like Oprah, people she didn't even know. So she didn't love us. She didn't claim us. She did nothing for us. And once I opened my eyes and see she got the right one with Prince Harry being a mark and a simp, and he had a bitterness and an anger because he's the spare. But really, y'all need to watch South Park.
I'm glad my troll question went on that direction. Can I add like one little?
No.
Okay, I will not.
Yeah,
I will not.
sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm gone.
All right, cool.
Elsa, do you notice she never mentioned her mom? The reason why she want to mention her mom because she didn't want to mention that. Right? Didn't want to mention that. Right? Nobody said that Meghan Markle has to claim us. Nobody's asking for that. Why are we asking for someone to claim? That's not what we're asking for. What has she gone through? I've never asked. I don't care if Meghan Markle claimed me being black or not. It is not my issue whether she claimed being black or not. She could pass as being white originally. I understand that she has her own nuance of a story that I have to also be cognizant over as well. And when she realized she black, in the place, she had to learn like we had to learn. So I can hold some grace out for her. You learned just like I learned. that no matter how British you are, you black. No matter how light you thought you were, you black. And I've got grace, and I'm not even mad at that. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at it at all. All right? I'm not mad at it at all. People go through their experiences, but to drop that, come on, baby. Come on now. Come on now. Come on. Let's just be sensible. I'm not saying that she hasn't got any valuable points. Again, once more, I'm saying the same thing again. I think Melanie has some key points in there. There are some aspects of our culture we need to look at and to change. But ragging on people ain't changing that. Saying niggas ain't helping nobody. Saying women are trash ain't helping nobody. It's not growing us from our community. It's only further enhancing the divide between the two. So we need to look about having conversations that bring the two communities together. Okay? That's all it is. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what it is for Meghan Markle. I'm not, again, this whole thing. We don't need to feel bitter if she never experienced being black. Listen, there's no beef to this. Whether she was black or whether she felt like she was black beforehand or not makes no difference, because oftentimes how people are raised and an environment that they're raised in can begin to dictate how their mindset is. But once she got to Britain and she got into an all-white space, an all-white party, she realized she ain't white. She realized, I can't pass here. They ain't letting me pass. Now you got to reassess your whole establishment. That's a whole story in itself. That's something she has to deal with now. That's something she has to deal with. You know what I mean? That's something she has to deal with. I'm sorry. You know, that's something she has to deal with. But I don't want to be like lambasting her. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you didn't know. You was out here living your life and winning. Okay? You was winning. Okay? You're right. She didn't identify. And she probably still doesn't identify. But she experienced what black women have experienced. And therefore, she spoke about it. Nobody asked her to champion us. We never asked her to do any of those things. You know what I mean? What we asked for is that the people did not do racism. That's what we're asking for. You know what I mean? But yeah, well, guys, going to dip off. That's the end of the conversation. So, yeah, we'll be back on in about an hour's time. Got the men's panel. You know, we're gonna have a real conversation. We're gonna get these men to talk about leadership and relationships. So, yeah, we're gonna have a good time. I appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. You know what I'm saying? And you know what? You already know on this side of the internet, we don't play them games. Okay?
Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
Not on my watch. Okay? All right? So we appreciate that. Okay? We appreciate that. Listen, we'll be back here in an hour's time. We'll be talking for the men's panel, talking about leadership and how we lead. And it's going to be an interesting conversation. Okay? So we'll see you guys very, very soon. Much love and appreciation. Ta-ra.